Hi, everybody. Welcome to Two Off the First. It is March 17th, 2026. I'm Ryan Balaji. Thanks for being here. It's our Tuesday show. We're going to look back on the weekend that was in the world of golf. We really only had one tournament of note in North America. Then we had a live golf event in Singapore that was won by Bryson DeChambeau. We're not going to really spend a whole lot of time on that. We do have a full slate this week, though, of events. We've got the Valspar Championship on the PGA Tour. We've got the LPGA back in the United States after a week off to conclude their Winter Asian Swing. They're playing in Menlo Park, California for the newly title-sponsored Fortinet Founders Cup. We've got the DP World Tour in China, which is where the LPGA was last on Hainan Island, similarly for the Hainan Classic. So they've got a limited field for that. Liv is playing this week. They're playing a third event in a row. They're playing in South Africa now, which is a hell of a flight from Singapore and Hong Kong, but they're doing it for their fifth event this season in South Africa. There is no Korn Ferry Tour event this week. That starts up again next week. They're going to play on the Landings Club in Savannah. And then we've got the Champions Tour, PGA Tour Champions playing their first event in Arizona this year, Cologuard Classic in Tucson. So lots going on here this week. But the Players was awesome. Really, really good finish. I think that one of the reasons so many people had a problem with the Players and the PGA Tour's push for it to be considered a major championship for so long was that a lot of the finishes weren't particularly good. And it wasn't because they weren't necessarily compelling. I mean, Fred Funk winning on that Monday. You had Adam Scott surviving the 18th double bogey at the end to win. I mean, even Craig Perks was fascinating. All the chip-ins. Funny story, that was one of the first tournaments I ever covered the year after, 2004. I was in college, and that's what I did with my spring break. And I went and talked to Craig Perks, and I really enjoyed that. He may not remember that, but I remember that. And I know Craig to this day. Yeah, great guy. But a lot of the malignment was the players who are winning the Players aren't world-class, aren't major championship caliber. And I think that was an unfair slight to the likes of Fred Couples and Steve Elkington and Greg Norman, players who won that, Justin Leonard, players who, Davis Love, players who won this championship. Some of them in those cases multiple times. Most of those guys I mentioned multiple times. And it was more like, oh, well, this is the solid B-plus tier event. But, you know, those aren't the greats. We want the greats. And if you look at this tournament since it went back to March in 2019, you've pretty much got nothing but bangers. I mean, you got Rory McIlroy in 2019 coming from behind. You know, 2020, obviously, that's its own thing. In 2021, you have Justin Thomas in 2022. Then you've got Cam Smith. Then you've got Scotty going back-to-back in 23 and 24. You've got Rory McIlroy in 2025, winning for a second time. And now you've got Cam Young. And what Cam Young did over the last few holes was fantastic. A real demonstration of the professional golfer he is becoming. And I think it was interesting afterwards, you know, being asked, all right, well, you went 95 starts without a PGA Tour win before you finally won at the Wyndham Championship last year. And now you're doing this, you know, 2 wins in basically the space of 13 events, 12, you know, whatever that is. You have grown tremendously as a player. And I think the big thing that I saw down the stretch was putting. You know, Cam Young's always been able to hit the ball very far. That 375-yard drive on 18 in regulation was incredible. The longest of the ShotLink era, and probably the longest you'll ever see on that golf hole in this tournament. I mean, it was the perfect line, with the perfect shot shape. It rode the fairway, went left. I know it ran out 20, 30, 40 yards. I don't care. With everything on the line, he took the perfect line. He hit the perfect shot to leave 100 yards. There was no way he was not applying pressure with a wedge in hand from 100 yards at that point. And then that comes off of being able to go first because Matt Fitzpatrick was in the group with him, but Cam Young birdie 17, great pace, literally perfect pace, last dying breath, rolling into the hole on a tough read. I mean, a putt that moves 1.5 feet in 8 feet is really, really hard to have the belief of, and he played it perfectly, goes in the hole. I know that the tee shot, under most normal circumstances, would not seem particularly interesting. It's a sand wedge for the guy. But because of the situation, he needed to make a birdie to catch the lead. He needed to put himself in position to make 18 matter differently than it was going to matter. He did that. on a really hard pin placement. I mean, Matt Fitzpatrick hit a good solid shot, and he had a 3-foot putt that went 30 feet, and it broke, I think, 8 feet is what they said on the read on the telecast. And so he applies the pressure. He gets to go first on 18. He pipes it down the fairway, as good of a drive as you could ever hit on that hole. And then he puts Matt Fitzpatrick behind the 8-ball. Fitz hits a good tee shot, but a little off of the line that you need to hold that length of tee shot. Goes into the pine straw. He gets out of the pine straw, which was perfectly fine. He knew he needed to get up and down, and he needed Cam Young not to make a birdie. And then, again, match play. You get the advantage, right? You're closer to the hole. You're Cam Young. Well, Fitzpatrick puts himself in a position where he can try to make par, but it's not an easy putt. Cam Young very calmly gets it down to a foot, 8 inches, whatever it is. And then it's all the pressure is on your opponent, right? Fitzpatrick has to make the putt or the tournament's over. He misses the putt. It's a 50-50 proposition at best from that distance. And then Cam Young, interestingly enough, said he didn't even think he could putt the ball in the hole from that distance. That's how nervous he was. That's when it finally hit him that he could win this thing, when he actually was going to win this thing, and he still putted it anyway, and it went in the hole. And he wins $4.5 million. He's now 4th in the world, which the volatility that we've seen a little bit more of the last, 8 or 9 months outside of Scottie Scheffler in the official world golf ranking is pretty interesting to me. Now he's 4th in the world. You get a multi-win bonus. You get 80 points. I mean, it's effectively like winning a major, 20 points short of winning a major, but for all intents and purposes, there's no other opportunity like this. The signature events at best are 70 points, which is still a lot, but 80 is 80, and he played great. He was fabulous down the stretch. He played like a guy who had to play from behind, right? He had no choice in the matter. He started from behind, and Ludvig Aberg for the first 10 holes was playing like a guy that was a little nervous, but not so nervous that he couldn't get the job done. And then that second shot on 11, the par 5, winds up not managing the wind properly, hits a 7-wood that goes straight into the water. And they showed on the graphic kind of how it would look wind affected. It would otherwise be short and in the bunker, but instead it drifts right into the water. That's double. Next hole, 360-yard hole, short par 4 for this guy who was seemingly struggling a little bit off the tee. We saw that on the 4th hole at the beginning of the round. He managed to negotiate that and save par. However, knowing what you had just done, knowing what your miss is when things go wrong, why would you get out driver and entertain the water? And you hit a big old snapper. It had no chance of ever getting in the hole or into the fairway. And you find yourself in a position to lose the golf tournament at that point. You've lost control of the tournament, right? You make a double bogey because you hit it so far snap left that you can't even drop way down the water hazard, right? That's not your option. So now you've got to hit from 180 yards from the rough, which was intentionally penal over the course of the week. You wind up going long, sloppy, 2-putt, not even a 2-putt from there. You make 6, and now you're in deep doo-doo, right? Now you're behind, and you've got to play from behind. And I think from that, he never recovered. And it's really hard to do that when you mess up the 2 easy holes, really. I mean, 13's an easy hole as well with that Sunday hole location. But if you mess up 11, 12, 13, those are really your last ports of call to make birdies before you get to 14, which is extremely difficult. You get to 15. It's not impossible, but it's not easy. 16, you can mess up. Even if you hit a great tee shot, 16 is a big ask, 17 is a big ask, and 18 is a big ask. I don't really care how short 16 is at 540. You've still got water all down the right. You've got water deep. If you miss left knowing the hole location and you get into either the deep rough or you find it yourself in another position, then you're going to have a hard time trying to hold the green. And that happened to a couple of players, Bobby Mack, Jacob Bridgman, basically chipping the ball in the water because it just kept running. So that's out there. And he just never recovered. And I think that Ludvig kind of gave away the game of what was going to happen a little bit if he got challenged on Sunday. He said it on Saturday. He said, my tendency is to get way faster with things when I feel pressure, when I feel nervous. I have to really intentionally slow down, and even then I can't really do it very well. And that is the mark of a guy who knows his fault, which is good. He's been in contention enough to know what his flaw is. but he doesn't have the remedy yet. And I think Robbie Callan pointed this out at CBS Sports, what I thought was a fair point to make, which was if you're not a good putter, and Ludvig isn't a good putter, he's not the worst putter, but he's a middling putter on the PGA Tour. Back half, I guess. Yeah. But if you're not a good putter, and you know that, that applies a lot more pressure when you're in a contention situation to your long game, right? You've got to stick it close. You've got to take advantage of your other strengths because you know people are coming for you. You know you're going to make mistakes. And so to overcome those things, you need to do better with what your gifts are, which are hitting the ball far and putting it close to flags. And if you don't do those two things, now everything falls apart. And that's true for every golfer, by the way. That's not just a Ludvig problem. The good news potentially is that you take away something from this if you are him and you say, here's where I fell apart, here's where I can get better, and here's what I can do the next time so that if I'm in this position, I handle it better. And I think that happens to a lot of golfers. At some point it does. Whether you're in junior golf or amateur golf, collegiate golf, you figure it out as a professional. And there are some people who just never get those opportunities, right? Winning golf tournaments is a rare thing for most people. So you don't find yourself in that position that often, right? And Matt Fitzpatrick even talked about this after coming up short, which was he had been talking with his coach about feeling like he found himself in position a lot to finish somewhere between fifth or sixth place and like 15th place on the PGA Tour, but very rarely somewhere between 1 and 5. And that's true for a lot of players, even major champions like him. It is hard to put yourself in that position. It's hard to have those kinds of reps and know what to do when you're in that position. You don't know how your body reacts under pressure. You don't know how your body handles increasing pressure, right? And for Cam Young, the pressure at Wyndham, I'm sure, was very substantial, right? He's trying to get off the schneid. So many people have said you should win by now. You're a world-class player. Why haven't you won? That's pressure. But then there's another level of pressure of this is the biggest tournament the PGA Tour has. It's a 5-year exemption. It's $4.5 million. Puts you into the top 5 in the world. It puts you on your name on a trophy that people are going to remember for the rest of your life. That's a different level. And what I don't know as a competitor, because I've never been in those two situations, is it more pressure packed being at the Players versus the Wyndham in those two situations, trying to win for the first time versus trying to win a big one for the first time? I don't know that. And I'm not entirely sure Cam Young knows yet how he feels about that. But those are very rare opportunities. So how you handle those moving forward, if you're someone like Ludvig and you say, all right, I had this chance and I blew it. How do I get better the next time? Is there a next time? Well, then the doubt creeps in. Is there a next time? Do I get this chance one more time? I haven't done this really in the majors yet. Maybe this was my one and only. And I don't think that's true, but the doubt creeps in. And the next time you get there, how do you handle it? How do you try to move yourself slower? How do you kind of manage your game a little bit better when you know things are falling apart? If they fall apart, what do you do? And hopefully there are some positive takeaways from this entire experience for him, for Ludvig, that he becomes a better competitor moving forward. And I think he will be. I know that a lot of the internet chatter, the immediate aftermath of this is Ludvig's overrated, he's a choker, blah, blah, blah. A lot of people choke when they play golf. A lot of people choke. And even the ones that don't get the high profile of choking, choke. It is exceptionally hard to win a golf tournament. It's exceptionally hard to control yourself and win a golf tournament with a lead. Those things are really, really difficult to do. And so I think you got to give a guy like this, or really anybody, a little bit of grace. You know what he's capable of doing. He's won on this tour multiple times. He's been in Ryder Cup situations. He knows all of those things. I think that you have to kind of say, okay, from here, he can do better. He knows he can do better. Now he's going to go figure out how to channel all of that energy, maybe improve his putting to some degree, right? You got to go make that effort and have a little bit more of a balanced attack. And you go look at the model of Brooks Koepka, guy who won 5 major championships on the back of a very confident putter. That didn't make him a great putter or the best putter, but it was good enough to handle everything else that he did really well and gave him the opportunity to win 5 majors. And you've seen the last 2 times out with Brooks Koepka that he has played better. because he feels like he's putting better. So there's less pressure on every other facet of your game if you feel like some of those putts are going to go in. And your good iron play is going to help you out. And that's what needs to happen for Ludvig Aberg. That's where he's got to get to. He doesn't have to be Brooks Koepka exactly. I think his pace is aspirational. It's incredible. His attitude, light and airy. I think that's a good thing. I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't think you have to be some stone cold killer to get out there and be a winner. I mean, Scotty Scheffler doesn't carry himself quite like that. He's not super breezy, but he also doesn't look like he's trying to stress so hard about everything to kind of be have this level of manufactured intensity about him. That is not who he is either. You can be champion in a lot of different ways in terms of your mental approach to the game. But you need to have a fairly well-rounded set of talents and traits to be able to do that. And if you can't do that, you're going to be really limited in what you can accomplish, even with the incredible gifts that someone like Ludvig Aberg already has. So we'll see what happens there. Also wanted to talk about Sudarshan Yellmaraju. Sudarshan Yellmaraju finished in the top 5 in the Players' Championship. And I know a lot of people are probably like, who in the world is this guy? And why is he here? How did he get here? And then kind of got sucked into the story a little bit. Like, all right, outside chance to maybe contend. On 18, he kind of made a blunder of it. Just short of the green in 2. Chipped it a little along, made bogey. It still wouldn't have won. Like, even if he had posted 10 under with a par on 18, that still isn't good enough to win. It gets you tied for 4th place, which there's some significant money to that, and points. But this is an incredibly successful week for this guy. And I covered Sudarshan a little bit last year on the Korn Ferry Tour through our show, The Road to French Lick, with Brendan Sweeney. He won the 2nd tournament of the year on the Korn Ferry Tour schedule, and that was at the Abaco Club. Out of nowhere, I literally never heard of the guy, and he winds up winning in the 2nd tournament of the year, and all of a sudden you're like, okay, this guy's 2nd in the point standings. Now he has something that matters for the rest of the year, and he didn't do anything otherwise particularly spectacular for the year. Played solid golf a lot of the time and wound up finishing 19th on the points list, barely surviving, but getting to the PGA Tour. And he had played fairly well, through his first run on the PGA Tour. It didn't look particularly great for him to maybe maintain, certainly get the playoffs, but maybe to maintain his card through that part of the schedule so far. Not because he played poorly, just because he wasn't getting quite enough points, wasn't getting quite enough out of his rounds to be able to do anything with it. But now he comes here, finishes tied for 5th, makes an insane amount of money, almost $1 million. And that is so much for this guy. So Sudarshan is of Indian heritage, came to Canada. He turned pro at, I think, age of 19 because he couldn't afford to go to college, couldn't afford to go play college golf and risk whatever was going to happen in those 3 or 4 years, depending on what he did, versus the opportunity to potentially go make money. So he kind of toils around on PGA Tour Canada and the Americas, and he gets Korn Ferry Tour status through Q School in 2024, or for 2024. Played okay, held on to status, got into 2025. He wins. Then he manages to hang on for dear life, get a card out, and now he's in this position. And that, to me, is what I think we should still be fighting for on the PGA Tour. I know that the Brian Rolaps of the world and frankly a lot of the superstars of the game want a world where it's hard for the Sudarshans of the world to do something like this, right? They want that extra layer, that extra barrier, to protect their spot, protect their access to money. But this is such a cool story. And it's it's one of like 500 stories that someone like Ryan French has told at Monday Q Info. But this one gets to that almost highest level of the game, almost to that trophy level. And the guy was, I think 700 to 1 to start the week. And now this week he's like 80 to 1 because all of a sudden the golf world, the golf betting world has recognized his talent for what it is and what he is capable of doing. And he's capable of doing a lot. He's a self-taught guy, taught himself on YouTube, not a golf lesson guy, doesn't have a coach. He figured it out himself. He got this far by himself. He did it. I love that. That's a guy I want to support. It's a guy I want to get behind. It's a guy I want to wish well. I hope you pay more attention to Sudarshan Yellmaraju. It's such a cool thing. And I just wanted to give him a shout out for what he accomplished. It's a big deal. It's a big deal for him. And even if he does nothing the rest of the way, this was a really cool moment for him. I think there are bigger things for him. That I think he has that kind of mentality, always trying to get better, just a good, solid person. So if you want someone to root for this week and every week, Sudarshan Yellamaraju is your guy. And congratulations on a heck of a run at the Players' Championship. All right, that's going to do it for us on today's show. I really appreciate you being here and watching or listening to it. You can catch this full show on golfnewsnet.com or our connected TV apps. See segments over on our Instagram page or YouTube page at Golf News Net. Find us either of those places. And you can catch us in audio form on your favorite podcasting platform, as well as on our audio-only YouTube channel, Golf News Net Radio. Back with another show on Thursday. We got a full slate of action this week, as I mentioned. We got the Valspar Championship. Liv is in South Africa. The DP World Tour is in China on Hainan Island, which is where the LPGA was before this week, coming back to the United States to play in Menlo Park, California, the Fortinet Founders Cup. We've got the PGA Tour champions playing in Tucson, Arizona for the Cologuard Classic. A lot on the slate, lots to watch, lots to talk about. I'm sure we'll get some very interesting things said in the next couple of days leading into tournament week. If you have any questions, get a hold of me, Ryan at thegolfnewsnet.com. I am on social media at Ryan Ballengee or Ryan Ballengee Golf. Thanks so much for watching or listening. We'll catch you on Thursday right here on 2 Off the First.